As we've reported, Flair Airlines is under fire by flyers who say they were left stranded at the Cancun airport for 3 days. Travel expert Claire Newell joins us now. Claire, do we know what was behind this latest extended cancellation? And has Flair made any statement regarding this?
Not that I have heard, and I've been trying to stay up to date and read as many stories as I could about passengers who have gone through this experience. It was actually about 48 hours. It must have felt like a week, though. So they were supposed to leave on Thursday at around 6 p.m. They didn't leave until Saturday at around 6 p.m. But they went to the airport 4 times. And if you know going to the airport, you've experienced it yourself. You have to go and check in. You have to put your bags in, you then go to the gate, and then you have to wait, and then you board the aircraft. And in this case, it was supposed to be what they've said is it was navigational equipment not working. That's at least the reports from customers. Then they were told to get off the aircraft, then go get their luggage, then get on shuttles and go to airport hotels. Nothing like what they would have stayed in at the resorts they were there. Most of these people were on spring break and were traveling with kids. They went to the airport 4 times and did the same thing. It was the ultimate creeping delay. And in this case, there were reports that some people stayed at airport hotels and were covered, and some had meals covered, some weren't. If this ever happens, you need to make sure that you keep every single receipt and then make the claim against the airline. This was a really unfortunate situation and at the worst possible timing coming back from spring break. And because it was a creeping delay, there was hope that they were always going to be going on that aircraft. So it would have been easy for someone to say, okay, I've got insurance that covers me for a trip cancellation and interruption insurance, and got on another aircraft no matter what. But in this situation, Flair is considered a small airline, unlike WestJet and Air Canada that would have had aircraft to actually swoop in and get people back because they've got that kind of depth with aircraft. Flair doesn't. They're a small fleet. And so when they go down, you can't just bring in another aircraft and get these people home. And they are not obligated to get people on another carrier. They just need to get people back on their next flight out. And in this situation with a small airline, it's days. So they ended up, it sounds like, going back on the same aircraft. I was reading reports where candy wrappers were left and things were left, so they knew that this was the same aircraft with the navigational issues. But just an unfortunate situation all around.
Yeah, I mean, frustrating, tiring, you name it. We're also hearing from travelers, Flair customers saying, Claire, that they're just trying to get home because they got pets that are waiting for them. They've missed work. They're not back to work on time. So what are your options if you find yourself stranded by an airline, if you find yourself in a similar situation?
Right. From the very get-go, anything that you have expenses for, whether that's accommodation, meals, and then once you're home, if you had pet care, your dog was in a kennel or you're missing work, all of that should be documented, and then you can make a claim against. If you have insurance, that would be the route first. More luck there than if you don't have insurance, going straight to the airline and making a claim. Have it well documented. This is a situation where you can't just phone somewhere. It needs to be in a clear email with all of the receipts attached and everything itemized so that they can pay it. But my guess is that this is months down the road if in fact it is paid.
Okay, we have to ask you about another Boeing plane involved in yet another incident. What can you tell us about this recent landing in Oregon?
Yeah, this was so rough for Boeing, especially because this was a flight that was going from San Francisco to Medford, Oregon, 139 passengers, 6 crew. It was a 25-year-old United aircraft. There are not many details regarding this panel that were provided. However, we do know that there were no injuries, no emergency declared, and there was no indication of problems during the actual flight. FAA is investigating. I don't think the panel issue is going to harm Boeing's reputation any more than it already is. It's just obviously it's not going to help it. But I know that there's a lot of people who are fearful. We have chatted many times about the situation regarding Boeing and the fact that there really isn't much in the way of alternatives for people, because this world is essentially for commercial carriers dominated by 2, Airbus and Boeing. So it's really frustrating. I will say, though, for those who are afraid, Please keep in mind that this situation has got Boeing under the microscope. So we've chatted about the fact that some passengers noticed bolts that were missing. These situations, both big and small, and a panel, those images are really, really frightening. But big and small incidents are finding their way to the media right now, and it's not helping for those people who are afraid. This was likely a maintenance issue by Boeing. This was a 25-year-old United aircraft.
All right. And finally, Claire, I want to ask you, for the sixth time in 7 years, Toronto's Pearson Airport has been named the top airport in North America. Tell us a bit more, if you could, about the ranking that, by the way, also includes a few other Canadian airports being recognized.
Yeah, it does. This came out from Airport Council International, which is kind of the global go-to for world airports. And for airports that are over 40 million passengers going through, Toronto Pearson was named #1, along with Atlanta and Dallas. And so really great news for them. This is the sixth time in 7 years, as you mentioned. But for smaller airports here in Canada, for airports less than 2 million passengers, Fort McMurray and Saskatoon were on the list. And Fort McMurray had a whole bunch of accolades, including the easiest journey and also the cleanest airport. So some good news for those two airports. If you've gone through them, you may know that, but I was happy to see them listed.
Well, congratulations to all. Thanks so much, Claire. We're going to leave it there for now.
Thanks, Carly.